Commissioners now in session. Will you all please rise while we say the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, it is September 6, 2022, and I would like to welcome everyone here, as well as those who may be live streaming this or watching this on YouTube later. And also like to give a special welcome to the lady who told me she watches every one of these, and because she's interested in what happens in our community. And I'd like to thank her and all the other people for their interest in Candy Lake County government. There's going to be a couple of agenda changes here. The first item on the second item on our agenda at 9 a.m. was an update from MnDOT, Capital Highway Investment Plan program, and it's unfortunate she cannot attend, so we will schedule that for a later date. And instead of that, we're going to, being the second item on our agenda, we're going to move the update on the Big Candy East County Park Bathhouse, and that'll be involving Administrator Kleindahl and Jeremy. And one other change on our agenda that you may have, Candy Lake County Sheriff Eric Colleen has 4 items for us today. Unfortunately, the computer groups them differently, and he's got 3 together, and he got one later on. We're going to move them all together, that he'll take those in order as listed then. At this point, I would like to call your attention to the consent agenda. We have 2 items, as usual, on our consent agenda, and that is the iCompass and legal board minutes, as well as the warrants and the claims. Are there any questions or comments?
I'll move the consent agenda.
Commissioner Nissen moves to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Commissioner Anderson. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. Now I'd like to call on Candy Lake County Administrator, Mr. Kleindahl, and you're going to talk to us about Big Candy East and give us an update on that.
Okay, where's that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Larry Kleindahl, County Administrator. Welcome to the Commissioners and the public here today. Here to give an update regarding Big Candy, Candy Lake County Park East, which is just south of, or just north of Lake Lillian. In June of 2021, we were awarded a state parks grant in the amount of $234,000. Part of that purpose for that park grant was we were going to try to do add 2 camper cabins out there and a new bathhouse facility. We signed an agreement in October of 2021. We started the design in December of 2021 with Egan & Associates, where we start putting the plans together and proposal of what the bathhouse would look like. You know, we had a couple different discussions. As you recall, a few years earlier, we did a bathhouse on Big Candy West. And then also we had a model that we were looking at similar to what we had on Games Lake County Park. So we're trying to take the models of those 2 buildings and kind of combine them. We did send that plan in when we submitted our grant, so we have to follow somewhat similar to what we were required to do that we submit with our grant. Part of the requirements with the DNR state parks grant that we have, there are certain requirements that we have to fulfill. And one of those obligations we have to do is we have to do a land study. Through this state historical preservation office, we have to do a study to make sure there's no artifacts or anything out there. We contracted with Bolton and Mink to perform a phase 1 cultural resource survey. We did that in November. They actually did their survey in May of 22. The survey was completed. In June of 2022, Candy Lake County received the final phase 1 report indicating positive tests around the site. So that kind of gave us a direction that we had to look at what else we want to do. we got together as a team that we're working on this and kind of discussed it. What are some of our options? So between July and August, we worked with Egan Associates, exploring other layouts and other possible locations. I'll show you kind of what the area looks like, and so you can kind of have a visual. Zoom this in. Camera was way out there, wasn't it?
There we go.
All right, we'll go out just a little bit, just a little. So, the original plan was to put the bathhouse right in this area here, and a camper, and then bring the camper cabins in here. The bathhouse was going to be here, right here. Let's see, the other bathhouse, am I saying that right, Jeremy? Huh? Yeah. So the intention was to put the bathhouse over in this area, but this area was where they found some positive testing stuff in this area. And so in order for us to put the new bathhouse and the septic system that we need to have, we have to do more studying. Well, then we looked at, do we really want to do all that extra work? Right now, we probably have close to about $20,000 in surveying done. We only get $234,000. So to do extra studying, it'll probably be twice that amount. And so then we start, Commissioner Anderson, myself, some of Jeremy, male staff and Jeremy, and we started having discussions about using the existing bathhouse location, and that's kind of where we're at today. Do we take the old bathhouse that's currently there, use that footprint, and put the new bathhouse in that location instead of this location? Doing that, we'll also have to do a study. But we believe because that footprint has already been disturbed, that we shouldn't have to do as much of a study. But we'll know that once we contract out. The intent of today is just to give an update so you know what's going on with that bathhouse and why it's not being built yet. We're trying to be as responsible as possible. We have to follow what the rules are. And so now we're in the process of, do we put the new bathhouse where the existing is? What would be the cost of doing that? We'd have to add a septic system to that new bathhouse and in that location. The current septic system's not big enough. So what that means is that we may end up disturbing the footprint a little bit more than we're hoping to. We're trying to do it all within the confines of the current footprint of the old bathhouse. And so, talking with Jeremy Pfeiffer over the past couple weeks, we were thinking maybe we can ask to do a phase one survey again, just around the outside of the footprint that we're looking to disturb, and to see if that would be okay. And so that's where we're at today. We have to do the study just because we have to have some information to make the decision. Without doing that study, it's hard to make a decision because we end up doing nothing. We will end up asking for an extension on the grant. Jeremy's been in contact with the DNR state grants people, and that will be doable. The goal was to try to have this done yet, this fall, early spring next year. That won't happen. It most likely will be toward the end of next year or early 2024. Jeremy, anything else I would like you should add? Dwayne, anything else you want to add?
I was just going to ask.
Please proceed.
So for the public to understand, why is it we're doing a bathhouse? Can you give a couple reasons why?
Thank you. That's very good. So the current bathhouse is outdated. It's not as handicap accessible that we should have. And so we need to make it more accessible. And so that's why we're looking at a new bathhouse. If the bathhouse doesn't have good airflow in it, it's hard to get, if you had any type of handicap or disability and movement, it might be difficult to get in and out of the facility. And so that's why we're looking at upgrading.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Endek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it also going to be a storm shelter, or is there a storm shelter out there now?
So currently, we use the basement of the house as a storm shelter and the bathhouse. When we would build the bathhouses, as we build them strong enough to utilize as a storm shelter. We call them bathhouses yet. We don't code them as a storm shelter, but they're strong enough to be a storm shelter.
Commissioner Endek, proceed.
Another question, thank you. Do we have an RV dump out there?
Yes.
But that isn't connected to the septic system, is it?
No. It's a pump tank.
And how many gallons of septic do we produce in a year?
I bet there's a lot. I
would
don't
say
know.
a lot, yeah.
Because you have that many, we have, approximately 60-some campers out there. And I would imagine at least half of them dump before they leave.
No, not in the, Mr.
Please-
Chair, not in
please
the RV dump, in the bathhouse.
Oh. You win because you stumped us.
Well, the question comes to mind that if it isn't a huge quantity and we can't disturb soil because we find more positive artifacts, do we just go with a tank and pump?
Well, that was discussed, but, so yes, I'll use a number of 60 for math reasons. So you have 60 campsites, and say you have 2 people per campsite. And each person takes a 5-minute, or 3 to 5 minute shower. It's a lot of gallons of water. We talked about, Mr. Gear and I have had conversations about just putting a tank system in there. I think in the long run it'll be costly because you'll always be pumping that tank out. More costly than if we use a drain field.
And you're still disturbing the soil. So either way, it's a no-win situation for us, I think, is kind of what I learned from that field trip or whatever we did that day.
Because that's one of the things we looked at right away and had quite a bit of conversation about, should we just go with a tank system instead of a septic system in this area here? Because with the regulations, you got to have the system of tanks so far from the building, all the requirements. It didn't seem like in the long run that would be feasible.
Commissioner Anderson, proceed.
So this DNR grant that we have, does that go away if we don't use it within, when does that expire?
So as I stated, Jeremy's been in conversation with them, and we can extend it
Okay,
up to 2 years. June of 24.
okay. And then because we have to do these extra digs, are they going to give us more grant money or could we apply for more or what?
We can always apply for another grant. On the grant we received, they will not add to that.
Okay,
So if we applied for something, it would have to be somewhat different than what we're applying for on the current grant we have.
okay.
I don't know those rules we can add on to it. Do you? Jim?
Okay,
Okay, so we can't add on to the current grant, as I stated. So we can always apply for another grant. But again, these are 50-50 matches.
yeah.
And so,
Okay.
Any further questions, comments from anybody at this stage? Hearing none?
the whole purpose was just to give an update. It's information only. We are going to do that other phase 1 study around that old bathhouse, and at that time, we'll get that information, then we'll bring it back to the board on how to proceed.
maybe I did have one question. With the 60 campsites and looking at the future and this new bathhouse and all the things you were talking about, will that meet our needs for the future 10, 15 years down the road?
Good question, and thanks for asking it. Yes, we designed a campsite for what we're licensed for, which is up to 80 campsites.
Okay.
And so this here area here, this will be a hard surface road, gravel, concrete, whatever, repurposed blacktop. And the plan is to put, well, part of the grant was put 2 camper cabins here. Total, we'd like to have up to 5 camper cabins in this area.
Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, I just want to put in a plug for Chad and Dana. They do a great job, a fantastic job for that
Yep.
park. And the bathhouse that's there, I think it was built in the 70s, if I
Correct.
recall right. And it was good for the time, but it is outdated. They do keep it very clean and nice. But I think campers nowadays, they have different expectations when they go camping. It's not really camping anymore. but so they do a fantastic job, and I just wanted to say that. So.
Thank you, I agree with you.
Well, thank you for the good update.
Okay, thank you.
Next on the agenda is the EDC Executive Director, Mr. Aaron Backman. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Aaron Backman, EDC Executive Director. It's good to be back here again. This is my 7th budget presentation to the EDC. And as with the previous presentations, I am presenting a balanced budget. That's an important priority for me as an executive director, I believe. The EDC is a joint operations entity created in 2003 to promote economic development throughout the county and the city of Willmar. The Joint Operations Board on July 14th approved the budget that you have before you, and the Joint Powers Board, which is the ultimate authority for the EDC, on July 28th also unanimously approved the proposed 2023 budget. The projected revenue totals of $695,865 include a county levy of $578,000, which represents a $22,000 increase or 3.96% increase from the current fiscal year. I should add that expenditures for 2023 are projected at $693,280. Big picture, there's obviously a number of things in here. I'm not going to go, and I'm sure you're mercifully grateful for that, over all 128 line items. But a couple of things to note under the Elevate program, which is our entrepreneurship training program that Sarah Swedberg, my business development manager, is marshaling. We're basically doubling that, but that is through the benefit of getting a $76,000 grant with the state that Sarah was able to successfully get for the EDC. So that's allowing us to expand that and do some different things with Elevate. Second thing, under the marketing and public relations and, I should say with all the budgets, all the committees, all 5 standing committees have a budget. We make that a priority. The biggest single contributor for the increase from $75,800 to $99,590 under the committee expenses is the marketing. When we hired the new marketing person, I wanted to get her input as to where we should put our resources, where we should put our dollars. And so we're beefing up a couple of areas there. Also, I think as we are going along here, we are probably going to evaluate where, as I do each year, but evaluate the level of participation that we do with the tourism CVB. That's been at that component or level of $34,000 a year. They have bounced back from the COVID timeframe from 2 years ago. 5 out of the last 6 months, they're actually above where they were pre-pandemic in 2019. Has it been a notable year in this past Past 12 months? I think so. We have the largest project going on right now ever, in terms of dollar amount, that is, in the city of Wilmer, which is the FedEx project, $30 million project. The FedEx people will be moving in to the new complex in mid-September. So they have definitely progressed. If you go out there, haven't been out there lately, you'll see a few changes. So it's kind of exciting to see that. But with the EDC, we tend to be on the front end of deals. So we've moved on to the next big thing, which is the Nexus project, or Realm 5 is the investment company that's involved with that. That is, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that in the coming weeks, but that is involving a 137-acre site to the west of FedEx that will be notable. It's agriculture distribution related, and there'll be more details on that coming out. But I do want to acknowledge the county in terms of your interest in transportation. We are trying to get a TED grant, Transportation Economic Development grant, through the state of Minnesota. We are one of 4 communities right now that have been invited to submit and have done so, as far as I know, all 4 of us, for a TED grant to improve, in this case, Highway 40. This is between County Road 5 and where the Y is. There's a stretch there that 40 would need to be improved on to accommodate the Nexus project. That was due September 2nd, and I submitted the application on time last week. I want to thank Mel Odens for writing a letter of support in that regard. Thank you, Mel. And we're cautiously optimistic, as I say, that hopefully we will get funded. I'm just asking for a little over a quarter of the funds available. I think that's reasonable. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully later this fall we'll hear the results of that. I did talk to Mr. Buckeye, who is the program manager, on Friday, because I had to check to see, did you really get it? And he did, and he said it looks good, it looks complete, so we will see how it stacks up against the competition. It involves basically a turn lane and an acceleration lane together. It's about 1,900 and some feet in length in terms of widening it, because as you know, in that section, it's kind of narrow with narrow shoulders. So we have other things that are going on in terms of projects. I think of interest for all of you would be the housing study. We just signed a housing study, first update in 7 years, from the fall of 2015. I signed the contract August 15. Viewpoint Consulting out of the Twin Cities is undertaking the study, and that should be completed in December. That will involve a housing analysis for all 12 cities throughout the county. Any questions?
Mr. Backman, very, very good update, and some of us serve on different committees, and some of us are quite aware of the budget process and what goes into it and all that's involved in it. As well, I would just like to call to everybody's attention that may be watching this later on YouTube, that on our website is a more detailed explanation of the budget. There's 6 pages on there that we all have copies of, and the public can be aware of those are on our website as well. So please check our website out for more additional information on this. This increase, I feel, is very justified for what we're getting out of it. The outcomes are unbelievable what's happening, and I'm so excited about our community, that the progress we're making, and thanks for the EDC. Any further questions or comments to Mr. Backman? Otherwise, Commissioner Nissen.
I'm really quite excited about that next project, having read a little something about what they do. That would be a real boon to our local economy and the agricultural community. Yep. And it should bring a lot of traffic from quite a region to use their services.
Yep, I agree.
Yep. Commissioner Gardner, No? Okay, I believe you'd like a motion to accept this budget, correct?
would.
All right. The board chair would be happy to entertain a motion.
I will so move.
A motion by Commissioner Gardner to accept.
I will second.
And second by Commissioner Nissen. Any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Thank you. Very good update.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
And good job. And your whole team and all your committees. At this point, I would like to call on Mr. Kleindahl again.
All right,
Ready?
Gary Gear.
Gary Gear, I'm jumping way ahead.
That's all right.
Our agenda has just really changed with some person dropped out. I didn't mean to overpass you. I'd like to call on Kandawai County Environmental Service Director, Mr. Gary Gear, and you have some information for us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a nuisance abatement hearing regarding the Scott Johnson property at 589 90th Avenue Southeast. It's approximately half a mile south of his fur company business on Highway 71, and then a half a mile east, he has another property. So that just kind of gives you a reference of where this is. I have been working with this owner since middle of May with limited cooperation, but upon scheduling this hearing, got significant action. So I'm thankful for that, and I would be recommending, on the recommendation in the file, was within 30 days. I would just stick with that recommendation to that the applicant, he's confident he will, and I think he is very close to getting that completed. So I would be recommending a motion to have the nuisance abated by the county within 30 days, and with the understanding that we're intending that the property owner will take care of it before we would have to go in.
So you need a motion from us as well?
Correct, yes.
And so no date or time limit on it at
Within
all?
30 days, or you
Within
could
30
maybe
days?
October 1st or something would even be, if you would rather use a date.
Gary, for the record, do you want to show us any pictures?
Um,
Just for the record, or not?
I sure can.
Okay, if you
bet.
want to do that.
And
Please.
Are those those hides that I see and are
Correct.
completely
And-
deteriorated, or
You want to slide
Yes.
it up
so
He
it's
does
just a
feel
waste
some-
of a resource that
He really
I
has
won't get
expressed
my
to me that he
interest.
struggled getting shipping containers in this kind of post-COVID time period that he's been
Wow.
struggling with. He, some were worse than what you are seeing, and there's some of those that he is believing are still carry some value. But for
Well, back
example, this photo of solid waste has been disposed of. So this one is taken care of. This one as well, just a number of barrels, the stuff just piles up. A lot of these plywood boxes, you've maybe seen those at convenience stores and stuff around the area over time. I think there's another photo, yes, here. And this just captures some of it, of course. There's probably several hundred of these plywood boxes around too. A lot of those he has been able to place inside another building on the property. So they're still usable, but they were distributed or spread around the property. There you'll see. And this is, while it has a roof, the building that it's in, it's also tarped on two sides and open on one. So it's not enclosed in a building. So you're getting a
doesn't
feel
look
for
good.
it. And the disappointment to him as well is not being able to distribute these is, but the odor is the significant problem here. There is a neighboring residential house within 150 feet of these buildings too. So, and this photo, this side was full as well, so he has taken out a good number of them, but again, quite a inventory of hides to be moved yet. So,
Mr. Gear, do you think that's a reasonable time frame? It looks like he's got a lot of work to do yet, even though he's made some progress.
I think it is.
Okay.
He's communicated to me clearly that he will have it taken care of, and initially he wasn't giving me the response or that feedback, but I believe taking care of the hides will be able to happen within, and maybe you want to stay within 30 days. So maybe that was my initial recommendation. So October 6th could maybe be a date that
Yep, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we give an extension for 30 days to October 6th.
Sounds good.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Anderson
I'll second that.
and a second by Commissioner Emdick.
And-
Any,
Oops.
please proceed.
And that would include then that the county would abate the nuisance after October 6th.
Just go into
Yes.
effect.
Okay, yeah, correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody's clear on that? Okay. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. Thank you very much for the update.
Thank you. And could I give you a brief update on two other properties too that
Oh, yes, please do.
previously
We
presented
do have time.
for you? It was both the Kyle Carlson property south of Spicer on County Road 8. Prior to us needing to go in, he was able to license some of the vehicles and remove or dispose of the solid waste. So thankfully, we didn't have to go there.
Okay.
And he is now compliant. The other site was the Larry Knudsen site just west of New London. And I am thankful for Mel's equipment and crew. And we were able to go there and with good equipment and good help, abate that nuisance. And certainly it was a half a day's work with multiple guys and equipment, but it went well. So
Well, sounds like quite a teamwork there.
Yep.
And Mr. Gear, thank you too for staying on top of these because it is important that we enforce the rules and regulations. And it's good news when people do cooperate with us and they can
Yes.
get it done on their own. But thank you for bringing this all forward. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Now I'd like to call in Administrator Kleindahl. And you have two items for us, please, at this point.
Okay.
Larry Klein, Kennebec County Administrator. Just before Gary goes, Gary completed a 100-mile race through the mountains. So he's not only physically strong, but mentally strong to get through that run. So I just want to say congratulations to him on that.
Good job.
I was gonna run that race too, but I was
Yeah.
busy at the store.
It's really just an eating contest.
And any blisters or sore toes? Or?
Boy, we don't have time to.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
It went well.
Good for you.
Congratulations.
Glad you take good care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. First thing I'd like to present is the renewal of the medical examiner contract. We contract with Anoka County, Midwest Medical Examiners. We've been doing that since we went away from having our own appointed coroner. This contract has been reviewed by the sheriff and by the county attorney's office. There's no changes in the contract except for the name of one of the medical examiners. That name was changed as they got married and the name changed. Otherwise, the contract will run through 2023, and it will be, if there's no request to change it, it automatically will renew for additional 2 years. So the contract technically is through December 31st, 2025. The rate that they're charging is the same rate that they have charged for the last 5 years. And so there's no changes in the rate. I believe our county has been very satisfied with the work that has been performed. They get in records and stuff back so they can, our legal team can process the stuff that they need as long as our county recorder's office.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move that we sign that contract.
A motion by Commissioner Nissen to approve the contract.
I'll second
And a
that.
second by Commissioner Anderson. Any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously.
Okay, Mr. Chair, moving into the 2023 budget. Just to give you a little history. So today, if the budget is certified, which means is that between now and the end of December, the budget can go down, but it cannot go up. So if it is certified today, you're locking in what the maximum amount is. And so the actual final budget certification takes place in December. Give you and the audience a little timeline of the budget process. As you know, when we work on the budget, we don't just work on a one-year budget. We work on a plan for several years and how we want to handle big expenditures that may be coming upon us. We also take a look at facilities that need to be taken care of. And so we do a long-term planning. And so what we try to do in doing that is that it keeps the levy at a consistent basis as much as possible, so it's easier to project and easier for people to plan. So we start the budget process in May, where all the budgets, the salaries and benefits are entered in from our auditor treasurer's office. The week of the end of May, the budget packets go out to all the department heads and to the quasi-government facilities that the county also funds. They then are returned to me in June, around June 22nd. Then between June and July, mid-July, I sit down and I review the budget with all the department heads and go through their process. And if there's any questions, then we sit down and discuss those. And then around the last week in July, I generally meet with the board chair and the vice chair to run through the budget, to get some information, to give them information, kind of where things are at. If they're making some recommendations of any changes, we do that. And then as the board as a whole, we'll meet with, usually around the mid-August, we'll meet with selected department heads where we go in detail and hear about what is driving some of the budget factors, what are some things that the board should be aware that's coming up for the coming year and beyond, so they know what's driving some of the budget numbers. And then, of course, today, then I'm here to propose the 2023 budget. If it's not approved today, then I would bring it back to the next board meeting on September 19th to have it approved. And then we have our Truth and Taxation meeting, a tentative time for that, where people can come and talk about the budget, not the property values, but it's their budget process. And it's very important to note that if you're watching this today, the Truth and Taxation is about the budget. It's not, you also get your valuation papers about the same, you get the notice. But the Truth and Taxation has to do about the budget. And so that we're aiming for December 1st on that one at 6 p.m. Here in this boardroom. And then on the 1st of December, after that meeting, the proposal is to present that final budget. So that is the timeline of the budget. To go through, and for those who are interested, our budget is online and will be online. It's in the board packets that the commissioners had. The commissioners, this is not the first time they've seen this budget. They had the budget details in every line details, not just the packet that you see. They had it a week before the meeting in August, and then the meeting in August, we went through it and they had opportunities to ask questions, and they have it before them again today. So members of the public, if you see the commissioners today acting, it's not, they're not just acting on information they just received. They've had it for over a month. No.
Mr. Chair, I have a
Commissioner
question. For the public who may look this up online,
Yes.
I see a 49.75% tax capacity rate, which is lower than it's been for a while. Can you explain what that is and what that means?
Yes, but I'll do it to the best of my capacity. So the tax capacity is based on growth within your county. So the lower the number, the farther your dollar goes because of, I suppose, in valuations increased around across the country, not only in Canada County. So the valuations has increased. We have more businesses that have built and developed, and so there's more people paying in to the dollar. So even though your levy may go up 2.9%, that's what I'm proposing, that doesn't mean that's going to go up on your tax statement. The tax statement based on your valuation could actually go down, but your valuation is higher because of property values. Does that help you?
Well, I'm more concerned about the public because I've
Right, no, I understand.
heard this 8 years now, but I thought that might be something that the public might want to know, and
Yep.
I've always thought a lower number was good.
It is.
And so I like that number. The other one went up a little bit, but it's, I think, reasonable.
So, good question, in that, so the tax capacity, we actually, when that number came in, they double checked it, because they thought, wow, was quite a big jump. But then we start talking about what the valuations have been, and everybody's talked about the housing market, how much houses are selling for, especially around the lakes. I think people are buying homes actually more than what they're asking for. And so that has an impact, and of course, as we stated, there's the businesses. So this is a balanced budget that we're presenting this year. Some of the main highlights that you'll notice, or the public may notice, is that we are going to recommend taking $600,000 out of reserves. We're going to be replacing the fence and the berm along the landfill. So if you drive along Highway 71, you see the landfill, and it has a berm and an old fence, and it's deteriorating, and that needs to be replaced. And what we want to try to do is put a better fence up to try to keep our landfill stuff within the landfill and not over in the ditches and the neighbors. And so that estimate cost is about $1.6 million. So recommending to take $600,000 out of reserves. With expenditures and stuff that you'll see in the budget, majority of the increases has to do with salaries and benefits. Our biggest resources that we have is our employees. And so that's most of what our cost is. And so that you'll see that throughout the budget. As far as other information, we heard during our presentation in August from Jenny Lippert regarding public health. There's some grants that we used to get, and dollars we used to get for vaccinations and stuff. And one of our local medical providers has been awarded that grant. And so those dollars that we used to get now will be going to that medical provider. And so that was a significant change if you look going through the public health piece. And we're also not sure of all the funding we'll get from other public health grants that we're waiting for. The levy that I'm recommending is $36,362,370. We're getting additional $111,000 in county program aid. The county, and that's significant to know. Our total county program aid is $2,476,130. Kansas County takes every dollar we get for county program aid, and we take it right off the top for county property tax. So that truly is a tax savings break for the public. So when the state of Minnesota provides county program aid to us as counties, we in Kansas County, we take that off and provide it directly as a property tax relief. So without that, the levy would have been $38,838,500. So I want to thank the state of Minnesota legislators and the governor for giving us county program aid, and I hope that they keep those numbers coming. It would have even been higher if the tax bill would have been passed this year. Chair, is there any questions from the commissioners?
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Larry, back to county program aid for just a moment. For the public, explain what that is. If I recall correctly, this is funding that's intended to offset some mandates?
Correct. Back when county program aid first started, there was an agreement that if we picked up some federal requirements, the cities and counties would pick up some of the requirements that the state then would help fund some of those programs that are mandated to do. And so some years most years they keep that promise. There's been some years throughout my tenure here that that didn't happen as much as it should have. And you'll see in the chart the different years of county program aid. But it looks at what we have for cost regarding services that we provide, and then it takes it off the top.
But this isn't intended to cover all mandates, correct?
Correct. We have a lot of mandates, about 80% of our budget. You have very little decisions of what you can do. A lot of people think you can just go and cut whatever program you want, and that's not true. What happens in the state of Minnesota, if you didn't provide the funding, they would withhold other aids from us.
Thank you. Commissioner Emdek.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding the history of the county program aid, I believe it was eliminated actually a few years ago. And our former colleague Harlan Madsen would point out that today's funding is back to about the 1980s level of funding, and that so while we appreciate everything we get from the legislature on it, they need to be reminded that it is an important part of our budget process and a promise that should be kept so that we aren't asking our residents to pick up the tab that was supposed to be paid from the state dollars.
The questions, comments about the budget to move forward? Again, I'd just like to repeat a couple of things Mr. Kleindl mentioned. This is all on our website. There's 12 pages of this budget. For everybody's information, this is what the county board receives and goes through. It's 56, 57 pages. And of course, this is what Larry goes through many more times than we go through to get to this point. And I'm sure you got other stuff that we don't even see because of, as a result of that, we get this budget at that stage. A very complicated budget, a lot to it. I'm really feeling okay. As Commissioner Nissen mentioned, we like to see low numbers and not high numbers. This is going up compared to our last, 3 years? We were under 1.5% increases in our levy each year. And this is a jump from being 2.9. Yet with inflation being at 8.9, and we have a lot of expenses that we don't even control, talking about bids for roads and contracts like that, and they will be coming in higher. So I think we have a good budget, and I appreciate your work, Mr. Kleindl, and all the department heads and staff to make this work at this point. So I would entertain a motion to approve this, and we're approving
2.9%.
2.9%.
There's a levy increase, a total levy of $36,362,370.
Okay, and just to be clear for the public too, that this is to cap this out, and we're going to visit this down the road again. You heard the request for a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair, and I have a question when you're ready.
Sure, a motion by Commissioner Emdek to approve the levy at this, as stated, and a second by?
I'll second.
By Commissioner Gardner. Commissioner Emdek.
You mentioned December 1st. Is that something that we have on our calendars? Because I didn't.
Okay,
Have we set that truth to taxation
yes,
meeting?
when we did the scheduling, the tentative,
Okay.
and we put it as a tentative date.
December 1st at
6
p.m.
p.m. in this.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second? All in favor, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Klein.
So I just want to thank all the department heads. I want to thank the commissioners. This is my last budget. I'm excited about it, but this is a team process. It's a team process that we do it certain parts of the year, the budget, actually put it down on paper, but we're doing budgets every day. You'll hear when we have a road and bridge meeting about costs and expenditures, what are things we plan for. You'll hear when we have reports from department heads that come to the board about whether what costs are. We do this all the time, but we do it in a responsible manner that we understand the impact it has. But so I want to just thank everybody for the great support on these budgets and the great hard work and to making things work.
Thank you as well. Thank you. At this point, I would like to call on Kansas County Sheriff, Mr. Eric Holeen, and you have 4 items on our budget. And why don't you just start proceeding down the line? I think the first one has to do with review and audit.
All right, good morning,
Good morning.
Yeah, going through the first two items are non-action items. They're just audit reports that I'm bringing before the board, so you kind of are aware as to what's going on at the sheriff's office. The first one's going to be the body cam audit. So you understand on this particular audit, we hired an independent company to come in and do an audit on our body cams per Minnesota state statute. Not only does it go before you, the county board, by me, it also goes to the committee for data practices down in St. Paul. So our auditor went and presented this down there as well. What they have found is we're substantially compliant with Minnesota state statute when it comes to the body cam audit. In our policy, there's about 8 points that you'll see that is addressed by the auditor. We are substantially compliant because 2 through 6 of the 8 points of the policy are compliant. Of the recommendations, the 2 recommendations that he made, and as well as his consultants that he was working with, is maintain a separate log for the body cams, even though that each individual officer is assigned them. And we do that by payroll, that we kind of figure out who's assigned body cams. But then the second part is, rather than just having a verbal agreement with other entities, for example, the county attorney's office and or other law enforcement officers, to get a written agreement, even though it is not required by state statute, as far as that they will also follow the state statute when it does come to the auditing process. As you may remember, or some of you that are new, back in January of 2018, Sheriff Hartog came before you and presented the policy as well as what they were going to implement at the sheriff's office at that time. And it was in March of 2018 that they ended up implementing the body cam program. And about March or May timeframe of 2019, all deputies had body cam videos that, or cameras that they were wearing at that particular time. So it is a timely process to get all of this implemented and put into place. So it does not happen in a quick time period. So you understand kind of the history as far as data retention. For most part, data retention that we keep these videos is for 90 days. So we also have a list as to when those videos are destroyed. If there's any form of data destruction, it happens automatically. It is set by our IT department by the guidance of me and the chief deputy. We kind of put together when we determine when those videos should be destroyed. So individual officers cannot go in there and destroy them. Individual officers also cannot go in and change or manipulate the videos in any way, shape, or form. And that's also what they do during their process of this particular audit, just to make sure that none of that is occurring. When we look at how is that information disseminated, the videos in and of themselves, the request comes to the sheriff's office. It'll either go to my records clerks and or me. The final approval is done by me, the sheriff, as to who we disseminate that to. Generally speaking, our largest person that we disseminate it to is the county attorney's office, and there is some other law enforcement entities as well, which then they have to go by state statute when they destroy it. When we look at classification of the data, each individual officer is responsible for classifying the data at the time of the incident and or going back and entering that information later. So we don't accidentally destroy that information or it falls off the system, and it gets retained for the proper period of time that it is supposed to occur. So when you look at the body cams in and of themselves, we do have 23 body cam video or cameras. Of those, 20 of them are assigned to patrol division. Then we have 2 of them that are assigned to our investigations division, and then 1 is just a spare. So that way, if we have one that goes down, we can always use that as a backup. Some things that you may not be aware of as far as body cams, anytime that we have contact with someone, body cam comes on, especially when we're looking at law enforcement purposes. One of the other changes that we did as well is anytime the investigation unit puts on a raid jacket, which would be a heavier bulletproof vest for doing building entry type stuff, even though it may not call for SWAT, they put body cams on just to documentate that, as well as our SWAT team. Anytime that they do an entry, we do have body cams on the SWAT team while they're going through it. So there is safeguards as far as access to the body cams. So some things that people may not be aware of, the only people who can watch the videos of the individual officer is the individual officer themselves and their direct supervisor, the sergeant. They are the only individuals that have access to it, can't destroy it, can't manipulate it, etc. And then, of course, our use of force instructors also have access to those videos as well. One of the unique things when we talk about use of force, Anytime that use of force is used, the supervisor has to review that video. So that way we can determine that it was appropriate use and there's no other further incidences or issues with that. And one of the things that he talks about also in the audit is the enhanced surveillance technology. We at the Sheriff's Office do not have that. We do not plan on implementing that. When you look at enhanced, that'd be either your infrared and or if you had thermal type capabilities, because obviously there is another line that we would have to jump through in order to do that. The last thing that you'll see is our policy that's in the Appendix A. That is our body cam policy. It's out on our website as well as attached for your purposes. And at this point, I'll yield for any questions that you might have on the body cam audit.
I'd just like to add the 16 pages of the audit is on our website, and as well as a certificate of compliance. And you don't have a copy to show that now, I suppose, but it's quite a thorough audit. Questions or comments? Commissioner Anderson?
So my comment would be that I agree that it's a good thing to have these, but then I also wonder how much weight is the average officer carrying? Because a lot of the stuff, when you see one of you guys walking down a street or something, you got a lot of stuff on you.
The average
That's my question.
weight is 26 pounds that's added to their normal carry with firearm, duty belt, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments?
Okay.
You hear none, thank you. Good update.
Well, just for your reference also, at the time which the audit was done, there was roughly 12,000 files that have been created in body cam footage. So it's a lot of data that we retain.
Wow.
So just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Public doesn't, and even the board, or myself anyway, I should speak for, doesn't always realize all the things behind the scene. It sounds really simple, well, where your body camera and that, but there's really a lot going on as a result of that. So thank you.
The other item, again, this is just another audit. This is done by the Minnesota Peace Officers and Standards Trading Board. This is to make sure that we are compliant with the state statute and the rules that they have in place for this. It occurs every 5 years for all law enforcement agencies throughout the state of Minnesota. When you look at the three main topics, the mandated policies, that we're also receiving the mandated training that they require of us, and then the last item there is the emergency vehicle operation or pursuit driving. As you'll see, that's a very hot topic right now as to what's going on throughout the state. So of those three things, we were compliant in those areas. When we look at what are the mandated trainings that we end up doing, firearms and use of force, when we look at firearms and use of force, we do our firearms a minimum of twice a year, even though the state only requires us to do it once a year. And then our use of force as well. The use of force can be empty hand techniques, intermediate weapons, which could be the baton, the taser, and then also you got your pepper spray. We have to show that we're doing the training and the adequate training in those processes. We submit all those curriculums to the post board, which gets approved by them. As far as the police pursuit vehicle stuff, we have to do that every 5 years. We end up sending them up to St. Cloud to the driving school up there, which we end up doing that. Mandated policies. So when you look at posts, they put out there all the mandated policies. The nice thing is we also belong to Lexipol, which is a policymaker for the sheriff's office and multiple sheriff's office and police departments throughout the state. So it's easy for us to keep up on the mandated policies and also change them to be specific to our county. So as you'll see in the mandated list, there's all the different policies that we have to have in place. Of that list that you see before you, the only one that, or two I should say, that we don't have to have is the automated license plate readers, because we do not have any on the sheriff's department, and then also supervision of the part-time peace officers. So we do not have that as well. Now, when we look at the personnel files, we presented 5 personnel files to show or prove that the individuals have had the interview, psychological, physical, and met that criminal history background check, which our investigators are doing. Of that, all 5 were found to be in compliance. And then also when you look at officer complaints, prior to this year, all officer complaints were maintained on an individual database by each law enforcement agency. Going forward, as of this year, now the nice thing is the post board does have an automated system where any complaint that we get on a licensed peace officer automatically gets uploaded into their database and it's tracked immediately. So we will no longer have to do this double entry system where we have our separate system and then Post will have theirs. We can just print off whatever we submit to Post and then enter it into our files, and they have it immediately. So that action gets taken at that time. And if there's any questions in reference to the Post audit, I'll also yield to those now.
Any questions or comments? Again, this is all on our website, and there's certificate of approval for that as well as on there as all the other details. So, thank you, very, very positive stuff. Thank you.
All right. Last two items are going to be action items. First one that you're going to see before you is the State of Minnesota Joint Powers Agreement. County Attorney Shane Baker and I did get some clarification on this one, hence why I attached the resolution number 2022-44. That was a resolution that Shane Baker came to you with at the prior county board meeting. And since he already has the county sheriff's office mentioned in that resolution, we did not have to have a separate resolution for this joint powers agreement because it's allowing us to use and access the same data systems that the county attorney's office is as well. So direct, indirect, and or computer-to-computer type access is what it does allow us to do. We also have to be compliant to any audit process that they might have as well. So when you look at any individual that enters our law enforcement agency, we do have them get trained because of some of the sensitive data that you'll see that they may be able to access just by simply walking by our computers. So that's why you'll see we even train our maintenance department in order to be compliant with the BCA. So when you look at this information that we use it for criminal history checks, and that could be anything from the FBI to the BCA, so NCIC, and those types of accesses. The grant dollar amount or payment that you'll see is a total amount for $8,040 for the year, which they're asking to be paid quarterly at $2,010. And I'll take a motion, or if you got questions about the agreement, otherwise we'll need a motion for the acceptance of the agreement.
So just to clarify then, the resolution number 2022-44 that I'm going over, there is no time frame on it or dollar amount, but just the way it is, that's all.
Yes, and this
This is
joint
a
agreement is
5-year
good for 5 years.
But, okay. So it doesn't have to be stated in there, that's what I'm saying.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that resolution 2022-44.
A motion by Commissioner Nissen to move, motion to approve resolution number 2022-44. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Gardner. Any further questions or comments from anyone? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Thank you. And next and last one.
And the last one, this is going to be the Kansas County Sheriff's Office and New London Spicer Schools Liaison Deputy Agreement. So the big changes that you'll see here is the dollar amount that we requested from them. It was a 4% increase due to officer salary. So the new dollar amount is $84,386 for the school year of 2022 through 2023. Of that time frame, we guarantee that there's going to be a school liaison officer or officer in that school anytime in which they have that school year period going. We have maintained the pandemic clause, if you want to call it that, in number 3. So if for some reason they do go to a hybrid learning or some sort of pandemic occurs, they'll do a daily rate of $487.20. The nice thing about anytime a pandemic would occur, that officer, if they're no longer in the school, then returns to some other job task within the sheriff's office that we put them at. So we're not necessarily losing them, we're just losing funding during the particular time in which that is occurring.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner
I don't see
Emdek.
a resolution here. Are you asking for our approval?
I was looking for that too.
Yes, on this one, we don't need a resolution, it's just an agreement.
In agreement.
And you don't need any action from us?
Yes.
Yes, we need an action.
I would move to approve this contract with New London Spicer Schools.
A motion by Commissioner Emdek to approve the contract with the New London Spicer Schools System.
I'll second that.
And a second by Commissioner Anderson. Any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. I'll get these signs, and why don't I call for a 10-minute break at this point?
Thank very much.
All right, okay.
Hereby call the Candido County Board of Commissioners back in session. At this point, I'd like to call on Candido County Administrator, Mr. Kleindahl, and you would like to discuss broadband.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. As you know, we've been working for many years on our broadband committee. Mark Borsham is the chair. It's a committee that is ran through the EDC broadband committee. As you know, there's a group of individuals that have been going to several of the townships, trying to get them information about what's going on with broadband, what role the townships will need to play, where we need to discuss broadband should be going, how do we get there. Almost everybody on that committee is employed and they get reimbursed for their time and what they're doing. Mark Worsham, who is our chair, does not. And so he's running across the county, working with township officials, helping them understand where the broadband shortage is and what needs to be done, what should be taken care of. He also is working with the providers. Along with myself, he has a lot of direct contact, negotiating with them about where the need is, how do we get them engaged. And again, he's doing this on his own dime. He's the only individual that basically is on our committee that isn't getting paid for what he's doing. And I would like to change that. As a recognition of his service and what he's doing, I'm asking the board to approve ARPA funds from broadband to pay the contract with Mark Worsham $5,000 a year. So it would be contract for 2022, $5,000, $5,000 in 2023, and $5,000 in 2024. If you recall, we did have a contract with the EDC that helped when we were filling that, helping with broadband and stuff. So we have done this before. I just think it's fair. And what I would do is I would write the agreement that the money would only come if he stayed involved in broadband. You know, so if he left in the end of 23, then that's when the contract agreement would end. So I just think of all the work that he's doing, we would end up paying someone else to do this if he wasn't doing this work. And so my ask to you is to provide up to $15,000 total, or $5,000 a year for 3 years, to give him as a per diem for doing what he's working on.
Mr. Chair, I will make that a motion.
A motion by Commissioner Nissen
And I'll second that.
and a second by Commissioner Mdek. Any further comments or discussion?
Just that I would second what he had to say about how hard Mark works and that he is truly not, he has his business that he has to set aside to go to these meetings and all over the county and chase down the MediaCom issue, which was currently before us. And so I think he deserves to be compensated.
It definitely sounds like it's a thank you. I mean, I'm sure this doesn't even come to $1 or $2 an hour for annoying him. And it saves not only having to hire somebody, or commissioner's time, staff time, to do all this on top of it. And we just don't have the capacity to do that. So, okay, any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote to approve this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Odens, I'd like to call Candido County Public Works Director. And you have a couple of resolutions for us.
We do, Mr. Chair. So Larry, we may need the overhead in a minute. So Mr. Chair, I've got, the first thing is related to the Highway 23 gap project. And I do have an overhead for you that I'd like to show you. And it's a detour agreement of the roads they intend to use when they do the 7 Mile Gap, South Gap replacement next year, starting next year.
Want me to back out a little?
Yep. So if anybody goes to St. Cloud or to the cities or Highway 23 up to 94, You can maybe back up just a little bit more.
Okay.
You'll notice that they've started the north gap, the 9-mile north gap. So next year, MnDOT intends to start the 7-mile south gap. You remember the 53 miles between Wilmer and I-94, there were 16 miles that was not a 4-lane. And so the south gap and the north gap replaces or makes this whole piece a 4-lane from Wilmer to 94. But with that, there's, when they're doing the 7-mile south gap, there's 11.27 miles of our road they need to use for detour. The largest one being County Road 2 from Highway 23 north up to Regal, which is 4.5 miles. And then later on in the year, they're going to use our newly constructed County Road 2, then south on 2, over on 31 to the King's Auto area. So with that, they do an agreement, and financially, the agreement amounts to about $56,770 that they would reimburse us for road life consumed, as well as anticipated maintenance that we need to do on this road, because we are agreeing to maintain the road. So we've got 5 months of detour up here, and we've got 10 days of detour down here. And so it's my recommendation to pass Resolution 2022-45, authorizing the county board chair and administrator to sign the resolution, and then that authorizes you to execute the agreement to the state.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
A motion by Commissioner Endeck to approve resolution number 2022-45, and a
I will
second by
second that.
Commissioner Nissen. Any further questions or comments? Commissioner Endeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does this resolution automatically renew for the second year of construction, or will you be coming forward? Or does this cover 2 years?
Yep, the detour is only for next year.
Only for next year?
Yep, and so what the intent is they'll put the detour on here right away in May, and it'll go through October, and then the detour for this southern piece, the 10-day detour, is because they're replacing some pipe on the outlet of Long Lake. And it's more effective to just close the road for those 10 days and switch it up to this detour.
So the plan is for,
Everything would be done for our detours next year. And then this piece down here would be done under under traffic.
under traffic, okay.
Yep, yep. So the net, if you will, gain to this county would be a little over $56,000, but you'll see that we'll use that in the next action item, so.
Mr. Owens, I believe you also had discussed this earlier with us, not maybe specific timelines for that detour, but this is,
May through October.
yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously.
So the second one is,
You want the map up?
yeah, I think I do. It'd be just easier. So this is the same map, and it shows the railroad crossing at Regal. Right here, it's Canadian Pacific is the operator of that railroad crossing. And part of the detour uses 2, but the railroad crossing is in very poor condition. So we've been working with the state, the rail office, as well as Canadian Pacific, and we've come up with an agreement that we would pay 20% of the cost, and the state would pay 80% of the cost. And so one might ask, why is the county paying any part of a state detour? But my answer to that is that it qualifies to be replaced, and we would put it in the normal STIP or the state transportation plan anyway, and we would pay 20%. So the agreement is that we would accelerate that work and do it this year and pay our 20% and then be done for the 4-year STIP. So the cost to the county is $20,447, which is 20% of the cost. And what my recommendation, it doesn't need to be part of this action, but what we will do internally is we will use the money that we receive from the detour to pay our 20%, which is directly tied to the detour work. So with that being said, it's my recommendation to execute Resolution 2022-46, which authorizes the chair and administrator to sign the resolution on behalf of the county.
I would move on that resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Emdack to move on resolution number 2022-46,
And I'll second it.
and a second by Commissioner Anderson. Any further questions or comments?
I'd
Commissioner
just say
Emdack.
that may be the roughest railroad crossing that I am aware of in the county. It is a good thing that you're not driving very fast yet when you leave County Road 50, or Minnesota Highway 55 and head south.
So on that note, the Canadian Pacific called last week, Wednesday, knowing that this is going to be executed, or assuming it was going to be executed, and I think they're going to be out there in 2 weeks to replace it. So it's going to go relatively quick.
Right.
It needs it. They're in the area.
Good
So they said, we'd like to just get it done.
Good.
So if we're good with that, they're good with that. So
Good. Any other questions? Not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks for pulling that
Mr.
together,
Owens.
Mel. Thanks.
At this point, I'd like to call on Kennewick County HRA Director, Jill Bankston. Good morning.
Welcome, Jill.
Where is that?
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Larry, and the general public. My purpose for being here today is to go through a report for the Candioi County HRA and make our annual request for tax levy funds. In your packet, you should have a handout from us. A couple highlights I'm just going to go through. We're currently working on implementation of the Wilmer 2019 Small Cities Development Program for the city of Wilmer to replace all windows at Lakeview Apartments and to make streetscape improvements in downtown Wilmer. We're also working on continuing to implement their 2018 program, which is for homeowner and business rehab. Businesses are for the downtown business district in the city of Wilmer. We'll also be starting the implementation of the 2021 Atwater Small Cities Project. And this is for homeowner rehab and rehab of the Atwater Community Center. This has not taken off as quickly as we had hoped, and a big part of that is contractors are extremely busy right now, and it's really hard to find contractors to finish up our 2018 Wilmer project. We are going out for bids at least 3 times to try and find contractors to finish up our project. So Atwater has not implemented as quickly as we're also implementing changes to our public housing and housing choice voucher program. I think I reported last year we've been accepted by HUD as a moving to work designated agency. There's about 100 of 3,000 public housing authorities in the U.S. that have been given this designation, and what it does is it gives us more flexibility in putting more flexibility into the rules of the program and making changes to the program to promote more self-sufficiency and taking off some regulatory burden off the HRA. We are also planning to join in the formation of a local housing trust fund to create another tool for the rehab of single-family homes for both renters and homeowners in the county. What a housing trust fund program is the state of Minnesota allows both counties and cities to establish local housing trust funds. This has been in state statute for several years. However, there's never been any funding put towards it by the legislature. In 2021, the legislature did fund the program, and Minnesota Housing is gearing up to announce requests for proposals to any local governments that have established these local housing trust funds. It provides additional match to local funds, and they can be used for local initiatives. The HRA has been very involved in the Vision 2040 Housing Subcommittee since Vision 2040 started, and has also been involved these past few months with the Wilmer Mayor's Housing Task Force. As I'm sure you know, the Wilmer Mayor created this task force to look at the need for single-family housing and what kind of initiatives can be put in place to address the development of future single-family housing in the area. Housing has become a key concern for many in the county, and there's a great concern for the development of specifically single-family housing. In July 2022, Candiota County had only 50 new listings of homes for sale. According to the Minnesota Realtors Associations, those listings lasted for 17 days before being sold, and this made Candiota County the 9th lowest of all counties in Minnesota for the number of days on the market. I'm going to ask you to turn to page 10, and this is showing you a U.S. Census Bureau building permit survey. This survey shows you the number of building permits in Candiota County between 1990 to 2021 that were issued for the construction of single-family units. You can see in the county, Candiota County hit its peak in 2023. This is a problem that all counties in the state are having, and this graph is showing you how Candiota County compares to other counties in the area surrounding us. The next page, on page 11, is showing you statistics from the Minnesota Realtors Association. I'd like to draw your attention to the table.
Should I put it in?
So, are you able to see that?
I can.
Let's see, there we go.
Good.
Okay. So the table towards the top and to the far right gives you year-to-date statistics. And that column, 1, 2, 3, 4th over, that shows new listings of 425. That was through July of 2021. And the next column compares it through July of 2022. And you can see there's a 15% decrease in the number of single-family units for sale. The next row is showing you the number of pending sales, also down by 15%. Closed sales are down. The median sales price is up by 14%. And the percent of original list price received by the seller is almost 100%. That's up by 1.3%. And the days on the market year-to-date from 2021 to 2022 has dropped from 47 days on the market to 29 days on the market. And then that July graph in the middle there is showing you comparison of 2021 to 2022. Listings dropped from 78 to 50, and the number of supply of units for sale has dropped from 2 months to 1.6. So this is just something that the community is, I hear about it all the time when we're out and about, that there's just this need for this. There's not a lot of development going on beyond around the lakes. And so seeing that need for the more entry-level type of single-family housing. The next pages on the HRA's report, I won't go through that in detail. You've seen those every year, but it's listing the rental unit properties that the HRA owns or manages, followed by tenant-based rental assistance programs. We provide rental assistance to approximately 591 households. And then there's other property improvement programs. I already talked about small cities in both the city of Wilmer and Atwater. We have also done those programs in Pennock, Raymond, and New London. We have a business loan program, which is being reviewed for some changes by Rural Development, security deposit loan program, down payment assistance program, and a Minnesota Cities Participation Program. We apply annually for loan funds that the state earmarks specifically for Candiota County, and our local bankers access those funds for first-time buyer loans. Our 2023 tax levy request, we are asking for a large increase this year, and I don't like asking for it any more than you probably like hearing it. But we are asking for a $117,000 increase. It represents an 18.5% change to our tax levy from this past year. Our total tax levy request is $750,450 up from $633,450 in the current year. We are asking for this to contribute to the formation of the Local Housing Trust Fund, and for that, we would be allocating $150,000 of our budget. And we would like to add an administrative assistant position to the agency, and we have needed to make adjustments to employee wages for hiring and retainage purposes. Our agency, like all other employers, are struggling with the retainage and hiring challenges at the moment in our economy, and so some of that is also reflected there. For tax years 2017 to 2021, the HRA's request stayed the same at $615,000. Our tax levy funds represent 8% of our total budget, which is $8,480,102.85. I'd stand for questions, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jill, thank you for the report and for the request, which I'm going to support. I think it's long overdue to be able to grow the capacity necessary to meet the challenges, especially when we're talking about all of the different needs within single-family housing. One of the questions that came up for me was regarding the Local Housing Trust Fund. So we need this we need to establish one in order to be able to access funds. The city of Wilmer has already established their own local housing trust fund. It's our intention to do a separate local housing fund for the county.
It is something I would like to approach you at a future date and ask for. And it's other counties in the state are doing this or have done it. There may just be a little technicality that if we're doing something within a city, there would need to be an agreement between the city and the county that it's okay for the HRA to do a project over there.
Okay, that's.
Yeah.
But the necessity is to keep it separate
Yes,
from.
it is.
Yeah, okay, because that was a question that we had earlier on in terms of what to do if we were to combine or not, because of course we are, both the city and the county HRA entity essentially. One question on the Minnesota Cities Participation Program. It says for 2022, almost $750,000 has been allocated for Candioi County, and 7 loans have been made so far, which is way down from participation rates from the previous 2 years. Is that simply a function of there isn't the inventory out there for people to get in the first place?
Yes, there just isn't. There's, like I said, in July, houses are only lasting 17 days on the market, so they're just gone so quickly. But I do know I have other loan officers in town have discussed how, they have numerous people that have been approved for loans. They just can't find anything. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Nissen.
I have another follow-up question on the Local Housing Trust Fund. I think it's a good idea. I am concerned about the wording of rehab of single-family homes for both renters and homeowners. Renters, if it's a rental housing, why wouldn't the landlord be responsible for maintaining?
Yeah.
I find that to be a little scary.
Yes. Yes, and that would all come later. I mean, we're just kind of going overall, like what this local housing trust funds might be used for. We'd have to create policies after that's created and come to like the county board or city council and have those kinds of things approved with those details. But yes, I agree. A landlord should be taking care of their property.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gardner.
And just to follow up with Commissioner Nissen's question, there has been an ordinance put worked on and put forward for the city of Wilmer. But if we create one for the county, then we need to go through that entire process and figure out what that looks like.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I will move on the HRA tax levy request for 2023.
Motion by Commissioner Gardner to approve the request. Is there a second?
I'll second
A
that.
second by Commissioner Amdek. Any further discussions or comments? I have to share your concern as well. It's a big, a little hard to swallow a 18.5% increase, yet it represents 8% of your funds that you have to work with, and this is not something new to us, that there's a major housing crisis, let's put it that way, and that impacts employers, everybody through our whole community, and some of us are in different task force, and we've discussed it at our work session. There's a need out there that we haven't had before, and I know you have a good track record of really budgeting and taking good care of this, so it's going to be hard to swallow, but I certainly support this. Any other questions from anybody? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Thank you for
Thank you.
bringing this forward, and that's good leadership on your part, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
All right. At this point, I think
So
I'll
we-
take a recess.
Or we could do committee reports. You could
Yeah,
start
for
those.
sure. That would save some time later. Yes, why don't we start with our committee reports right now, and then we'll take a recess after that, and then we'll go into the last item on our agenda. And with committee reports, or Mr. Kleindl, you want to start with?
Administrators information,
Updates, yeah.
updates? Yes, just a reminder, we got a road and bridge meeting tomorrow at 8:30 at Public Works Building. It'll be at the Public Works Building, 8:30. The agenda has gone out, so I'll talk about that. Also a reminder that our next board meeting has been moved to September 19th versus the 20th due to some scheduling conflict. And so that's where we've got going on with that. That's all I have for now. I got a note here.
Sure.
Let's see here.
Oh, also, the AMC Annual Conference for 2022 is December 5th to the 7th. So our board meeting is on December 6th, so that board meeting in December will also need to be moved. And so we won't do that at this meeting, but be thinking about that date. Most of the time what we do is we usually have it that Thursday, the following Thursday, to the 8th. That's what we've done in the past.
Sorry, you want to repeat that? I was
Why don't,
checking my.
Mr. Chair,
Uh,
why don't we set it now?
We can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
December 8th, move the
December.
board meeting from December 6th to December 8th.
I thought last time we talked about the 1st.
That's Truth and Taxation meeting.
Yeah, the same day, then we'd have it at the end of that. I don't know. Last year we did that, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah, last year we had it on the same day.
Do that.
Hang on a minute.
What your preference?
I'd prefer that, honestly.
December 1st?
December 1st, and then we'll have it
First.
same day.
Yep,
Okay,
9 o'clock.
all right, that's settled. Good.
Okay, you want to start on that side for
December
Oh,
1st.
Okay.
Instead of,
the 6th?
Yep. Okay, committee reports. Somebody suggested we start at the other end of the counter this time. Roger, Commissioner Emdek, would you?
Yes.
Are you ready to
Mr. Chair,
proceed?
thank you.
Catch you off guard, I'm sorry about
No,
that.
that's fine.
Okay.
I'm prepared. On 8/17, it's been a long time since our last board meeting due to the way the calendar fell. And so on the 17th and 18th of August, I attended the Association of Minnesota Counties AMC board meeting as well as a annual retreat. And I think you all received a follow-up report from myself and AMC regarding that retreat. So unless you had any specific questions, I'll move on from that. On the 22nd, we had the Glacier Lake Sanitary Sewer and Water District meeting, which was, well, I'm going to back up one meeting, actually a little bit personal to us. In our neighborhood, we had a local block party, or a block party, the first one ever, and we had conversations with the Glacier Lake Sanitary Sewer and Water District as well as the township regarding, I won't say potential, that's maybe too strong a word, but the prospect of a extension of the Glacier Lakes system into the neighborhood where I live. Then there was, on the 22nd, there was a pretty robust discussion in addition, about that. A lot of things that have to happen in order for that to happen. On the 26th, I attended the EDC broadband, or not broadband, but Business Retention Expansion Committee. And somewhere in here, we had there it is. On the 29th of August, we had a special EDC broadband committee, and regarding MediaCom and where they're proposing to expand or come into, I shouldn't say expand because I don't think they're in the area right now. And then on the 31st, I attended the Highway 23, Highway 9 open house in New London for the at the Country Stop intersection there. And I guess that brings me pretty well up to date, unless I missed Thursday or Friday. Only that I had another AMC committee meeting on Thursday.
Okay. Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, so since our last county board meeting, I had attended Pioneer Land Library System meeting, and that was pretty much a routine meeting. It only lasted like 25 minutes, I think. It was a real quick meeting. And then after that, I ended up, I found out I got COVID. I got tested on the 24th, and I had to quarantine. So I had 3 meetings that week. I was unable to attend the AIS task force because of that, and I scrambled. I tried to get somebody else to represent, but nobody could make it at that time because it was such a short notice. Then the rest of the meetings then I attended via Zoom, and one was a UCAP meeting, which also essentially was a routine meeting with that. And it was, unfortunately, with Zoom meetings, sometimes it's kind of hard to hear what's all going on and to kind of keep track of the meeting. And then on Friday, via Zoom, I attended South Fork Crow River meeting via Zoom, and there they had a lot of discussion. One interesting thing is one watershed, one plan for South Fork Crow River. The South Fork Crow River is about approximately 72 miles from east to west, and it has about 116 miles of river that they deal with, and they're going to split, kind of divide up the area into like 3 different zones when they are going to discuss funding in the future. And we're kind of the upper part of the South Fork Crow River. And I believe that starts from the dam in Hutchinson and goes west. And then, anyway, so then there was also a lot of discussion on different government agencies. They don't want to have too many people over-representing different agencies, so they're going to limit it to basically 2 representatives per agency. And they're going to kind of have that open discussion or whatever going forward. And I guess that's about it on that meeting. And then the next meeting will be next month. So,
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Nissen?
Okay, well, we had, my first meeting after our last board meeting was with Woodland Centers. We had an executive and finance meeting prior to the regular meeting. Discussed the bylaws because we are a nonprofit. There's some changes that Ashley has proposed. Dr. Chose, I should give her credit. She's a doctor. And so one of those things that we'll have to do is I believe all of us county board people are going to have to approve those changes And I don't, is there a separate meeting for that? I'm thinking there is, but did you see anything like
I have not.
Okay. Anyway, there's more to come on that then.
Okay.
The CPT meeting in Morris was a little longer than last, a 35-minute meeting to drive 120 miles. But we talked about a lot of things, including the tax rewrite that's coming along. We had our first meeting with the new director, which is Joel Flatten, who used to be the nurse, which
Supporting hands.
yeah. And he's going to be a real good addition, I think. He's very local. He lives in Hancock, which is like 6 or 7 miles from the, and they're talking about buying the building they currently rent because they're a little squeezed for space, number one. Number two, the fellow that owns the building has Morris Electronics, which he provides our servers. And that would stay there. He's going to go somewhere else. And we're just, the only thing we want yet to do before we commit is make sure the roof is in decent shape. It's not an old building. It's one of the newer ones on the main drag in Morris. So I think it's a good idea. We won't have people in closets anymore, in small cubicles. There'll be room to spread out. The talk was maybe to rent that half, but that creates another problem because the bathrooms are all on that other side. So I think that's going to fly, but it depends on that roofing inspection. Mid-Minnesota Rural Transportation Coordinate Committee is an advisory committee, and we're just talking about how to expand our rural, local, and how we get from our local group to the next area, like St. Cloud. And volunteer drivers is a big problem. We can't find any, just like everybody else has got the same problem. Bus drivers is the same thing. EDC had a special meeting. Roger reported on that, but I want to carry that one step further and to announce the public that live in Games Lake, Norway Lake, Lake Andrew, Lake Florida, you're going to be getting a survey. And we encourage you, beg you, to fill that out. And even if you're sure you don't think you need it or want it, if you want to sell your property at some future date, there could probably going to be a sales issue if you don't have it.
Correct.
So keep that in mind when you get that letter. It isn't when Bonnie Watson was here and she hadn't gotten her survey yet, so it's still coming. Compliance, the next two are kind of together. I'm on the Compliance, Data Privacy, and Security Oversight Committee at Prime West. We met separately from the meeting and went over all of the things that they're looking at in terms of compliance. They've had to take some actions against some vendors, but it's mostly correction that we haven't had to get rid of any vendors. But we meet 4 times a year to just discuss those issues. Prime West, nothing yet on the lawsuit. And it's very kind of frustrating that we have to wait and wait and wait. And we had I think we had the mediation meeting, and nobody knows exactly where that went either. But the two of them are going to cross paths. Sometime this month, he has to make a ruling. I think it's the 26th, but I'm just pulling out. Yeah, he has to have, that judge is a female. I shouldn't say he or she. The judge will make a ruling by the 26th of September, but we're all on pins and needles waiting for that to happen. Other than that, Prime West was pretty routine. We also met at EDC, Highway 23 Projects Committee, looking at projects that we would like to see happen, and we're pushing quite hard for the overpass over Highway 23 and County Road 5 and County Road 55, and and extending that 4-lane at least to that point from the Highway 771, where it quits all of a sudden. It's been graded out and everything. And so the other thing we're working on is a study on the east side of St. Cloud, fully to
Malacca?
Malacca, yeah. So those are the two priority items we gathered, and I think, and maybe Roger can correct me, we certainly did discuss the 23 Highway 9 situation in the New London area. That's it for me.
Busy time here. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Right after our board meeting on the 16th, I chaired the Candy Ojai Renville Community Health Board meeting. We had the Vision 2040 Housing Subcommittee meeting the following week, and a meeting with a subgroup of that body and the other entities involved in the Wilmer Mayor's Housing Task Force concerning putting together a public-private partnership group directly related to housing. Those types of things are still being fleshed out, as is the report from the Housing Task Force to the Wilmer City Council. That is being worked on, and obviously we heard from Director Bankston earlier, just how dire the housing situation is here in Candy Ojai County, and frankly all of west central Minnesota. Anything we can do within our area, within our region, is going to positively impact all of our smaller cities and neighboring counties as well, frankly. And that kind of dovetails with the child care issue. I'm happy to report that the funding that we provided out of our ARPA dollars went towards the grant application, and that's in. We think it's a strong application, and hopefully we'll see something from DEED out of that. We have some areas within that application that should cause us to score relatively higher bonus points, if you will. And so we're cautiously optimistic about that. Had the Humane Society board meeting on the 25th. They just had their Jordan's Way fundraiser last week, and I don't have a total for you on that yet, but it's, I believe, in the 5 figures. And with the increased number of animals coming through the shelter once again, that's funding that is greatly appreciated. BRE meeting was already accounted for. Sat with the West Central Industries board meeting last Monday. The last 2 items I want to go over briefly are, I'm part of a executive team that is going to be interviewing about 8 candidates for the Supporting Hands Nurse Family Partnership Executive Director position, and we'll be doing that basically all day on Friday down in Olivia. And that's going to be a comprehensive day search, questioning that type of thing, and looking forward to that process. The final thing that I have for us is that I hope that you can all consider sending me to jail. This is a fundraiser, not the real thing, although some would wish for that, by the United Way. And I know that there's one other rough-looking individual that's sitting up here that's on that list as well, but I would ask you to pick me instead. So,
Actually,
and all of those, all of those funds, Larry, will support families in our region. So,
I'd like to ask Mr. Kleindahl to hold up his poster, wanted poster. I don't know, who's the?
He's assuming something there.
He did a little
Okay, thank
artwork
you.
on that.
Good leaders do.
We need those kind of things to laugh about.
Ouch.
Okay, well, Mr. Gardner, Commissioner Gardner, thank you for your updates, and also thank you for your leadership too on the housing situation. Oh, my computer went off. There we go. There, I lost my calendar. I'm back. Going back, Commissioner Nissa and I were on open mic again this last month, and it went really well. We worked well together on there, I think. And I had a Prairie Lakes Youth Program Committee meeting, and I'd like to report that we are still in the black, by a whole lot, but we're doing really well with that program, and it's stabilized. I think the program is doing an excellent job what they're doing. Again, there are older buildings we're working with, and they need updating, and we need a lot of work there to take care of our youth that need that kind of housing situation. I attended several housing meetings with several different commissioners here as well concerning housing with the Mayor's Task Force and the Vision 2040 and the direction that's going. And that's, it's been reported on already. I won't go into any more detail on that, but I think it's going in the right direction, and we're looking at the whole county at this point and see what we can do to spur both affordable housing, and affordable housing can mean that people can't afford the housing. Also, housing is getting so expensive, we need all kinds of housing to support all our industries that we're having ready to take off in our community. We're really lucky to have that, as Mr. Backman reported, of these new businesses. I also had, I spent 2 days, it was not actually county board commissioners information, but I was invited as a county commissioner to be on the Minnesota Area Agency on Aging Planning Committee, and they give out grants to the 27 counties in our region. And there's about 26 or 27 grants we gave out. All but 2 were for nonprofits and 2 were for profits, but they had to be a final approval from the federal government. These are federal government grant dollars that they get is a significant amount, and they often involve more than just one county or just one city. So it's a variety of different kinds of services. They're titled 3B, 3C, 3D, and 3E federal dollars. And as usual, there isn't always quite enough money in each one of those categories to fund all the grant requests. And I say grants, most of them were grants, some were actually contracts for so much per hour to do a certain service, like when it comes to maybe food and stuff like that. And that was very interesting to go through that whole process, and we spent unfortunately on Zoom for 2 days from 8:30 until 5 o'clock. And I'm really glad to have Zoom, but boy, that's a long time to sit there. And we did interviews on Zoom, so it was very interesting. And 3 of those grants, and some of these grants are significant too, involved Candy County providers as well. We also had an EDC meeting, and it was, again, a very good update and looking at the employee retention of employees. At this point, I would like to take a 10-minute recess. Yes.
Mr. Chair, remember when we changed our board meeting for December? They now opened up the AMC conference registration, and should we have Karen make reservations for all of you?
She was in here on break, I think.
Okay.
I do, yeah. Weren't we all here when she was in here on break? And
I have my confirmation here already, so.
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I do have a couple of calendar things I forgot about, if I may.
Yes. Please.
This weekend, or this Friday night, is the Prairie Woods annual fundraiser, Music Under the Stars. Always a really, really nice event at the pavilion. And then on Saturday is the Prairie Pothole. I think it's their about 37th thank you, year of family fun west of New London.
Okay.
Thrashing days at Atwater.
Yep,
Oh, yeah,
that's this
that's-
weekend too.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to call a 10-minute break.
Monterey Crossing is playing.
All right.
Oh, in Atwater?
Yeah, on Sunday.
Yeah, one of the, I can't
They're
remember
a
which
good
day.
bluegrass band.
I hereby call the Candiota County Board of Commissioners back in session. At this point, I'd like to call on Liza Donabauer from David Drown Associates Human Resources and to talk about our search for a new county administrator.
You bet.
Good morning, Liza.
Good morning, Board. It's nice to be here again to move you one step closer to finding your next county administrator. We have 3 items of business tonight, or today, sorry. First is to select your finalists for interview. Those are the people that you're most interested in meeting on a face-to-face basis. Then we'll talk about your interview schedule, what is important to you. That'll help me draft your final interview schedule for the day, and then discuss whether you feel as a board a travel reimbursement is prudent for these candidates once selected. I will just remind everybody, inside your packets that you received about a week ago, it includes information that's considered not public, very private information. So just a reminder that when we are talking about the candidates today, and granted, I'll walk you through the process, and I think you'll see we'll have an opportunity to really not talk a lot about the candidates. I just want to remind you to not talk about where they currently work, where they formerly worked, even where they live. Those are all considered potential giveaways for their identities. Even maybe you want to try and keep pronouns out of it, but I understand that part too. Your candidates that you are talking about today have all received an assigned number. They were not assigned a number in any particular order, so please know that. Before we get started, I guess just to give a little background for those that are in the audience today, this position was advertised on July 20th. We received applications through August 17th, through a lot of door knocking, phone calls, emails, recommendations for those that may be interested in this position, even knocking on doors of those that weren't even considering making a move at this point in their career. We did only receive 8 candidates. That is a sign of the times, unfortunately. That's what we've been experiencing this entire year. It's, the feedback that I received from the candidates that did not apply, even though I hit them hard, they said, A, I'm not willing to relocate. B, I'm retiring within the next 18 to 24 months, or thank you very much, but if I'm going to relocate, I want to move closer to the Twin Cities, which was kind of surprising because I found over the last couple of years that that's been the opposite. So we did receive 8 applicants. I only pushed forward the 4 who I thought met some of those attributes that each of you shared with me, as well as your leadership team. And so that's the information that you had an opportunity to review in the comfort of your home office. You had an opportunity to take a look at resumes, cover letters, personality index, which just kind of shows you where their personality strengths lie, as well as responses to video interview questions. The question that you'll be answering today is, who are you looking forward to meeting in person on your interview day? We're not going to be talking about who's a good fit and who's not a good fit potentially here. It's just, who are you intrigued about meeting? So with that, I'm going to pass out a ballot. This is a very simple process. Trust me, it works. I'll pass out the ballot. You have room to include up to 3 numbers, which represent names of candidates that you're interested in getting to know. I'll pass these out, I'll collect them, I'll read the votes out loud, and you'll be able to very easily see those candidates receiving the most votes. That's probably naturally who you're going to be inviting for an interview. Those that aren't receiving any votes at all, we're not even going to talk about inviting them. Any questions that I can answer? All right, I'm going to pass these out and then I'll come back around.
I do have a question and
Sure.
experience. All of the candidates had some skills. 2 have worked directly in the position for very lengths of time. So
Sure.
How I was having trouble scoring that.
Yep. And so the screening or scoring sheet that I put in your packet really is only meant for a tool for you, each individually. So maybe you came up with a different scoring mechanism that you'd like. Maybe somebody else is simply operating off of gut instinct. And maybe there's other items in there that you wanted to score on. I'm not going to collect your scoring sheets. You're just simply telling me and the board today, you know what, I'm only interested in interviewing these 2 or 3 or 4.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Endek, please proceed.
So we have a ballot in front of us with the numbers 1, 2, and 3 and a blank after that. Are you wanting to put the person's name in there?
No,
or
just the
number?
assigned number.
The assigned number.
That's how we keep the names confidential.
And not in your order of preference necessarily?
No, correct.
Okay, thank
All
you.
will receive one vote.
So just to be clear then, you're going to share the information, you tally this for us, share it with us, and then we'll discuss where we want to go with this, correct?
Correct. I'll pull all the ballots back, read them out loud so everybody can follow along, and then that'll really help us easily delineate, okay, we have clear winners here, and maybe we just want to stop at
Way too much work in.
2 candidates or 3 candidates.
If they want all 4, they could put all 4?
You certainly can. I left space for 3, but yes. Ready? I just want to make sure the camera's not.
I didn't put it on.
Yeah.
All right, I'm shuffling the ballots, and in no particular order. Ballot number 1, I have a vote for candidate number 1 and a candidate for candidate number 3, so 1 and 3. Next ballot, I do have a vote for candidate number 2, candidate number 1, and candidate number 3. That's 2, 1, and 3. Next ballot, I do have a vote for candidate number 1, candidate number 3, and candidate number 4, so that's 1, 3, and 4. Next ballot, I have a vote for candidate number 3 and a candidate number 1, that's 3 and 1. And our last ballot, a vote for candidate number 3, candidate number 2, and candidate number 1. So final tally, candidate number 1 has 5 votes, candidate number 2 has 2 votes, candidate number 3 has 5 votes, and candidate number 4 has 1 vote. So with candidates number 1 and 3 coming out with 5 votes, natural inclination would indicate that they would be invited for interviews. This is where discussion begins. Candidate number 2 did receive 2 votes. Is there any interest in extending an invitation to that candidate, or is this board satisfied with 2 candidates? And the caution I do want to place there is I have found in most of my processes, you do have one candidate that generally withdraws due to accepting a position elsewhere or having a change of heart once they have the discussion with their family. So if that were the case, you as a board have to determine whether you're comfortable with only just having one candidate here on final interview day, if that were to happen.
Okay, so we're at this point for discussion now? Or
correct.
open for discussion. I'd like to call on the commissioners to open this for discussion. I would like to add then, we were looking at interviewing 2 candidates, and I'm just really think, I would like the board to be sure before we make any motions to, proceed further, that everybody gets a chance to say something and give their opinion on this. And I'll just kind of want to, you hope, and I'm sure you're all thinking this too, that we all had, I had hoped that we would have more candidates in this, and the pool is extremely small, considering what we're looking at for the importance of this job. This is a very important job, and if we're looking at 2 candidates, I think this pool is too small. And I think we have a lot of time left. The good news, Mr. Commissioner Administrator Kleindahl gave us a big notice, and we have a little over 5.5 months yet to fill this position. And I'm feeling real uncomfortable at this point proceeding with interviews, but I'm open to hear what other commissioners have to say. And I would hopefully, as the discussion goes on, you could address what other options we would have as if we do go back and decide, hey, we want to open the advertising again, or what would be the plan and the time frame for something like that, and what's the value of that? Okay? Who would like to go next? Commissioner Emdek.
Not that I'd like to go next, but I'm willing.
Yeah, I know, this is really tough. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Liza, for the work you put into this. It seems to me pretty clear that if we are to go forward with interviews, 2 have fairly risen, 2 candidates have sort of separated themselves from the pack, if you will. impact might be an overstatement, based on what Commissioner Berg said, and I tend to agree with him. While these are good candidates, I was hoping we'd have a bigger pool to select from, and I too would be interested in hearing not only whether or not, what our options are, but, will we end up with the same result based on your experience and opinion?
I would suggest that we talk to the three highest scoring candidates. I know the two out of the three scored higher than either of the others, but again, with the limited pool, I think that would be a good idea. If we're concerned about the size of the pool, then I think the three that got the most scores would be a good idea.
Mr. Chair,
Yep, Commissioner
I'd
Ende.
like to
You'd
make
like-
sure I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Nissen.
Yes.
So you would be opposed to reopening?
Well,
Because I don't think we want to, if we were to reopen, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, I doubt that we're going to be disclosing who we're going to interview. We wouldn't interview
No.
until we
Correct.
propose, correct?
I would respond to that by saying, if Larry is going to have time to work with the one we choose, we can't wait a whole lot longer, because, you have the interviews, and then we'll pick out someone who we feel is the one we want, and then we'll make an offer. Who knows where that will go. And then there's moving in some cases, and lining up housing, those kinds of things. So I don't think we can reopen. I think it would be a bad idea, and I think we should proceed with what we have. It looks as though the majority have settled on two candidates, but that's my 2 cents worth.
Who would like to, Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I don't know that I can add much more to what Commissioners Berg and Emdek have already said. To me, it was hugely disappointing to see the semifinalist pool that we did have. Not that the two candidates that appear to be in the quote lead here would not do a good job. I believe they would. But I don't think we got, for whatever reason, market or whatever, a true sense of who might be out there considering something like this. And I would not be opposed to at least listening to the reasons for and against reopening this.
Okay. Mr. Anderson? Yeah.
Boy, I don't know about that part. I'm kind of on the fence with that. I could go either way, I suppose. But I would agree, though, with Commissioner Nissen to interview the top three. And the reason why is, well, there's several reasons why. I've only been through this similar type of process once before. And when we went through the process, there were several that I would have liked to have interviewed, but they got a job elsewhere or whatever in the meantime. And so the pool dropped way down. And so if we only interview two people, we could end up in a situation where they both drop out, and then we wouldn't have anybody to interview. But I would like to have the three interviews, and then I don't know how you do it. maybe if more people come in that are interested, maybe we could see a video interview again with another individual if one pops up that you think we might be interested in the meantime. But I don't know how we'd go through it because we'd have to have another meeting to discuss it then too. So I don't know.
At this, well, Commissioner Emdek?
Yes, I just want to respond to a couple of comments that were made. I think people coming into this position regarding transition, Mr. Kleindahl has laid out a very long offer in terms of the ability to transition. However, a qualified candidate, I think, would make a very rapid transition. We've all seen places where maybe there's a resignation and you don't even get a chance for transition, and the candidate has to come in and pick up from where they left off. And I think any qualified candidate would be able to do that. So that doesn't concern me that much about extending, and Ms. Donabauer will probably explain, what the prospects are for if we did it a month or 6 weeks, whatever that time frame is. So I'm not concerned about that part of it as much. If we do move forward with interviews, the difference between candidate 4 and candidate 2 being just one, tally from the other, we might as well do them all in my opinion. That might as well do them all. If we're going to do 3, we might as well do 4.
Liza, can I ask you a follow-up on a question? What is, in your experience, you brought up the issue of how much time we need to work with somebody as they come on board. What typically do you run across, and what do you recommend?
So
I put you on the spot now. You're going to share the hot seat with us.
So typically, as you had hinted at in the past, there is very little crossover, if at all any. Somebody has resigned or retired, and they're, by the time we get started in our process, there's a 3 or 4 month gap, and you have really great staff that person is brought up through the ranks, and they serve as a great interim, a time gap, if you will. So as far as making a recommendation on crossover, that really is up to you as an organization and board. What do you feel comfortable with? But typically, I don't see any crossover. And yes, once you're thrown hot into the fire, you figure the job out, and you figure it out as fast as possible. I guess before I jump in anything else, what other questions would you like me to respond to?
Anybody else? If we did a time frame and went that route to see if there's any other candidates to either open it up again, would you have some recommendations? Do we open it up right away? And what would be the time frame? Because we do have over 5.5 months. And I'm thinking there would be time to go through this process and still have plenty of time left over, a month or 2 to still possibly work together. Would I be correct in that? How does that all work?
So to repost again, first of all, I would encourage you to finish out this process as such. You do have qualified candidates in here, I believe. And I think by closing this down and reopening it again without giving these candidates an opportunity, I'm afraid that may send a message that may discourage them from wanting to reapply. That's what I've seen there. As far as when you would like to repost, honestly, I recommend 3 to 4 months time in waiting, because there isn't much of a change in the market, particularly now. Right now, your top leaders are heavy into the budget planning process. The school season has started for many of them that have kids of that age, as well as holidays come up pretty quick, and that unfortunately will distract candidates from potentially looking for opportunities to move as well. So with that in mind, this typically is the slowest time of the year that we're entering as far as candidate movement, and therefore I think reopening it again, I'm not sure if you'd see much difference. Possibly waiting until January 2nd when we all come back to work and we start at re-advertising again, and the budget has been approved, holiday seasons are over. They're starting to think about spring and summer and where they may want to move with their families. That could be a good time to start advertising again. But I thought this beginning of the year, starting January 2nd, I really thought I was going to see higher numbers. And the truth is we have not. We have not been seeing good numbers. And that's not just our company, it's our colleagues as well who serve other communities they're
I have one other
representing.
question along the same line. Are we competing with any other counties for administrators? And would that have an impact on our numbers?
So that's the wonderful thing about asking for feedback. Why, candidate, are you not interested in making a move to Candy, Ohio County, which is fantastic. That salary was not anything I heard. I did not ever hear back, no, thanks, I'm looking at applying for this other county. So that is wonderful feedback because that's an easy solution. If I was to come back to you and say, nope, sounds like your salary is not high enough, that I didn't hear that one time. As I mentioned earlier on in my introduction, 3 pieces I heard was not willing to relocate at all. So that could be a family situation. It could be, or it was, I'm retiring, or if I'm going to relocate, it's closer to the metro area. So.
Commissioner Nissen?
Yeah, I think that I agree with you, because you did do a very thorough search. You went knocking on a lot of doors. You're begging people to
Just to take a
put
look at it at least.
put their oar in the water, so to speak, and you came up with 8 people. You winnowed it down, and I think we winnowed it down just a bit further. I don't see the value. I agree with you. The trend isn't going to change. People are, it's called, whether they call it the great retirement or whatever, but help is really getting hard to find, and it's obviously not a salary issue. So I think we should go with what we have. That's my personal opinion. I might be outvoted 4-1, but
You never know.
or
it goes the other way, yeah.
I just don't. I think we have a pool of candidates. They all have positive things. Go with the 3 that's what I thought we were working toward, is to winnow it down just a little bit further, and interview those, and I think we'll come up with someone and really special.
Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to be crystal clear here. I see nothing wrong at all with the quality presented to us in the top 2 candidates. I believe either of those candidates will make fine administrators. I found quite a difference between the top 2 and the 2 below that. If we were to proceed, I would not be interested in doing more than the 2 interviews.
I just would like to add to it, if that's the case, this is we're setting the future here on this position, very important position. You've done an excellent job, and I just think that it wouldn't hurt to look one more time and ask one more time so the pool is a certain size. And I agree, the candidates do meet the qualifications, and they could do the job, and we got a couple of good candidates. But I think it's important that we look at a pool, and in all fairness to them too, just by default, that they may get that position because it only, made it boil down to those 2. And if one drops out, I don't think it would hurt to look at the pool and possibly, since we do have time, and I do think we would have time for those 2 candidates. So, Commissioner Emdek.
Given what Ms. Downabauer said about moving forward with the interviews, I wouldn't support reopening it if we go through with the interviews. If we go through with the interviews, I'm saying, let's go through with the interviews. And I agree with what everybody said, that we would have preferred a bigger pool. We have qualified candidates. If we're going to go through with the interview, I'm confident we will come out with a new administrator.
I agree with Roger once in a while, this time for sure.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Well, I guess maybe I'm by myself, but I just see we have this important position that we, I personally feel that, in all fairness to everybody, that we would look again. And this is a very small pool in my mind, and we have a time frame to work with, and we have nothing to lose, in my mind, to give it another shot. And then we can say we did everything. But that's my point of view. Commissioner Anderson. Okay, and then you get a chance to come back.
She already said that if we reopen, we might lose one or two of those top
could.
people, and that's a risk you're going to take, and you might end up with no one.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, I just want to, I agree with Commissioner Nissen and what you had said, that we might lose them because now we look like a board that can't make up our mind. So I would be open to look at more, but I just think we've done the process, and we are really in a time when a lot of people are retiring, and the people replacing those. I mean, if you're looking for a job right now, it is an employee's time right now, because you have a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of job openings, and there's not enough people to fill those jobs. And I don't know. I'd be more than happy to move forward with the candidates that are there. Would I have liked to have seen more applicants? Yes. But we have what we have, and any of the top three, I'd be okay with, personally.
Any further comments? Okay, commissioners,
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Emdek.
I would move that we move forward with the interviews, but that we interview all 4 candidates.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Should we do a roll call? Do you want? Okay. Commissioner Gardner,
Aye.
Commissioner Nissen,
No.
Commissioner Berg, aye. Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Emdek.
Aye.
4 ayes and 1 no.
You got your 4-1.
Yeah, there you go. We had to figure it out somewhere. Okay, we're moving forward. Now you got some more things to discuss. And again, I think as we want to stress, I think everybody was saying that we had some good candidates to look at, and we're going to go there.
All right, wonderful. So next item for discussion is your final interview schedule. So in the memo that I forwarded to you last week, I presented a few ideas that I've seen other organizations take on, everything including from a tour of maybe some of the parks and projects that you're really proud of, maybe even challenge areas that this person could look forward to working on. Something informal such as coffee and donuts with your leadership staff and even you as members. Individual interviews with board members, a community meet and greet event, leadership or department head panel interviews, so more of a formalized style, as well as the formal panel interview with you as the full board. So that means your candidate would be standing here before you and spending 45 minutes with you as they answer some hard-hitting questions. Any stakeholders that you invite into this process outside of you sitting here, I will solicit feedback from. Usually it comes in the form of a written feedback form that contains 4 questions. After you conduct your final interview, that 45-minute interview, then I relay that feedback from your staff and your other stakeholders. The feedback is provided on a confidential basis, meaning their name is not attached to it. So I mean, the feedback is presented as is. So you will have that as one final puzzle piece to your decision-making process. You have a lot of backgrounding information that's going to also come before you. 1 week before your interviews, you'll have access to that information as well. So I really feel before you come to interview day, you're going to have a good feel for who each of these individuals are. So I think I would love to hear from you. What are some priorities that you would like for that interview day, and that helps me draft the schedule?
Commissioner Emdek.
Priorities for the interview day or this discussion of this, of these bullet points?
Priorities for what stands out to you. We must have a county tour, and we must have, that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Okay, so something that really stands out to me, which I would not support in any way, shape, or form, is the community meet and greet. And I'll tell you why. This is our decision to make. And I have already been approached by people in the community about supporting one or other of the candidates that, before I even knew who the candidates were. And so I just think this is not, should not be a referendum of the public to make this decision. This is a board decision. I do support every other bullet point on there, including the interviews with department heads and staff and the tours, but not the community meet and greet until we've made an offer and it's been accepted.
Any other? Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Liza, one of the bullet points on there is individual interviews with commissioners. Is that common, and how would that work?
It is not common, and it could involve all of you, or maybe there's only two of you that are willing to meet individually, but it's setting you up in a conference room, likely have another person in the room just to ensure that no inappropriate questions are being asked and getting you into hot water. It just simply provides, just depending on you as an individual board member, how much information do you feel comfortable needing or wanting in order to make your final decision. But no, I think in the 5 years I've been doing this, I've seen it twice.
That was the one of the items that I was probably most uncomfortable with. And so I wanted to hear from you if it's at all common. I don't have an appetite for it.
Me neither.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Endek.
Thank you for pointing that out. I sort of missed that, the individual interviews with each board member. Wouldn't we cover those questions in the formal interview?
I believe you will. You'll have 17 to 18 questions, but perhaps maybe you have, I don't know, bigger questions, like what's your favorite book? Or, I'm not really.
And my question, you're going to share some questions with us, but we can submit questions to you.
Yes.
About possibly including those.
You bet.
Yeah.
And not possibly, we will include them. We'll
Or phrase them right in case we ask the wrong question when we
Correct.
legally
And
shouldn't be asking. Let's put it that way.
And you also have another opportunity. 1 week before the interviews, you'll get a packet of information similar to what you received last week. It'll include the questions. So even throughout that week, if you see some changes, when I come here and we go through our brief orientation before you have your first interview, we can even make changes then. We just want to make the changes then and make sure that it's the changes made for all of your finalists.
I have a
Commissioner
follow-up
Emdek,
question
yes.
to Commissioner Gardner's first question. Is the leadership with staff and department head interview, is that common?
Yes.
Okay.
One form or the other, whether it's coffee with leadership or the formal panel interview. And here, considering the size of your organization, perhaps maybe you want to have both, where your leadership and department heads have more of a formalized interview. Maybe your coffee is with maybe your other staff who maybe want to do a meet and greet, and then your leadership staff can also participate in that as well. So,
If I may
Commissioner Emdek.
follow up on that, I like that, I support that. I think it's important because that is who the department heads are, reporting to over the period of the time that this person will be our administrator. Will they also have an opportunity to send you interview questions?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then to follow up on the questioning format, is it the intent that all candidates are given the same questions to be asked and answer?
Correct. And the only way to go off script, if you will, is you as a board or staff, if maybe perhaps they want more information based on a response or lack of response that they received to a question, that's an opportunity to say, can you expand on that a little bit more, please? And so that's how they can move away from, but yes, it's very standardized. Every candidate gets the same questions.
All right, thank you.
Anybody?
Yeah,
Commissioner
my
Anderson.
question would be this, and so when you have either coffee with leadership staff or the leadership staff do an interview with the candidates, how does that work with the commissioners? Because I thought we were making the decision. I know that it would be nice to know how they maybe would interact with the new administrator, but how do we find out that information, what their preference might be?
So for both events, the coffee as well as the more formalized panel interview, all will receive a feedback form. There's 4 very simple questions on there. What are your general impressions of the candidate? What strengths would they bring to the position? How do you see them not only fitting in with this organization, but your partnering organizations throughout your community, as well as any other general feedback that they would want relayed to you? They write that, and then I come before you, and you have to drink lots of coffee because I'll be reading lots of feedback verbatim as they relay it to you. And it'll either confirm feelings you've already had, or sometimes in those conversations, they'll be asking different questions than you as well. So perhaps they'll bring something to light that maybe you weren't able to pick up on in your interview. So it's really meant to complement the plethora of information you will have walking into interview day.
Any other questions, comments?
So,
When are they?
Chair, I have a
oh,
question.
appreciate it.
Are you looking for some decision on our part regarding the discussion and final interview schedule? If so, I would move that we follow your discussion, that is number 1, and remove bullet point 3 and bullet point 4 from the schedule.
Is that a motion?
Is that it?
Yes, that was a
That is a motion, okay, do you have a second? I was just trying to find out, I don't have that.
I'm sorry.
On my computer.
I'll
So you,
second.
Yeah,
Hang on, unless you want to read them, so does everybody got that?
So what I would be removing from the schedule is the individual interviews with each board member and the community meet and greet.
sure.
And I would second that motion.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Other than talking about the department heads and the leaders of our agency, when is that going to take place and how would that take place as well, if we're going to approve it?
So I will work or coordinate with staff the schedule for the day. We'll make sure that all of these hot items are coordinated into your day. We will make it work. We'll reserve staff and car and room spaces in order to accommodate all of these items. So I will get that schedule to you as soon as I've had a chance to connect with staff so that you have an idea of what your day looks. Because even part of that, I think you as a board maybe may want to decide if you want to be observers at the informal process, or if you choose to just stay and give staff their opportunity to interact with those candidates and then trust that they will provide feedback later.
Commissioner Nissen?
What is your timeline to set that up? Because I know that, the next 2 weeks,
27th,
some of us are not going to be available, so.
So
And I think it's going to take a little longer than that anyway, but I thought I'd bring it up.
Another question regarding
Commissioner
logistics.
Deck, yes.
We're going to do this all in one day?
we will.
Oh, my.
Okay.
Gets to be a long
She
day.
told
Get a
us to
good night-
block the day out.
Get a good night's
yes.
rest.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and again, if you don't feel that you need to be a part of all those activities, then your majority of the day will be the late afternoon where we're having the formal interviews with your candidates. So to answer your question, I'll be working with staff throughout this week, and I can simply just email it out as part of my weekly update what the schedule is looking like so that you have a good feeling. And it could be a moving document as we keep moving forward, but at least I can get you a draft.
And
Commissioner Anderson?
yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. That meeting will be the 27th still?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
Wait a minute.
we got that done. Next step.
Yep, next is to just discuss whether you as a,
You never voted?
Right.
We have to vote.
We have a motion and a second.
Oh.
on the floor.
Sorry, thank you. I get so caught up into this. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I'll call for the vote at this point. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Pose same sign, pass unanimously.
wonderful.
I just assumed.
Just to clarify, because I didn't hear it, what did we say about the 27th?
we're blocking out the whole day, basically.
Interviews are scheduled for September 27th, so I'm asking as of right now, just block out the whole entire day. And then as we get that schedule to you, I think it'll help you determine what
We
your
already
schedule
had that
will
on
look
our
like.
schedule.
I'm going to get fired from my bus driving job.
I haven't gotten that far in putting it in my calendar yet.
And so for those listening in, just to clarify, the interview day would consist of a county tour, informal coffee with leadership staff, possibly the board. Leadership staff and department heads would have a formal panelized interview, and then there will be the formal panel interview with the board here in this room. And then feedback will be relayed from stakeholders, and then you enter right into your discussion and deliberation.
So the next question was, do we do anything for our candidates as far as mileage or per diem or anything,
Right.
right?
So I wanted to ask you as a board what your thoughts are on offering a travel reimbursement. Again, every organization handles this different. Some don't offer anything, others offer a variety of packages. You do have candidates traveling from as far as 100 miles from here. So in consideration of that, is that something, part of policy or other precedent, if it's federal mileage reimbursement or one evening stay in a hotel or just a lump sum travel reimbursement? I guess I'm looking to you.
Commissioner Emduck.
Well, certainly I would support the mileage. I don't see anybody taking advantage of a one-night stay, but who knows? They may come up the evening before and do some personal private touring. And so maybe up to $100 per diem but they must use it to get it.
And I'm sure it depends on
For lodging.
when they're scheduled for the
And a meal.
interviews too. If you're traveling from the Twin Cities, for example, you said 100 miles, if you're the first one up, they might like to get here like the night before. Any other questions or comments on that? And do we need a motion for that or just an agreement?
That would be a motion.
Okay. and that is a
Federal
motion?
mileage plus $100 per diem towards lodging and food if it's used. It must turn in the receipts.
Okay. I will, the chair will second that motion. Any further discussion or comments on that? Okay. I think it gives a positive thing. If these people are coming here to interview and take their time, I think we have to say we appreciate that.
Yes.
And we respect our candidates very much. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. We're getting near the bottom of the list there.
Just one last piece of news is that I will now go out to my car and contact all 4 semifinalists to let them know where they are at in the process. In exchange, I just ask for a few hours before letting the identities of these candidates be known. And in exchange for that, I will write a press release, which will include the names and the backgrounds of each of these semifinalists. Forward that to the county, and then you can use that, it's your property at that point.
And then, so you will be forwarding that to
Correct.
Administrator Kleindahl, and he will send them out to the media.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we just asked that they would hold off if they could to give you a chance. That'd be nice, but we'll see. Mr. Kleindahl.
So if somebody does back out, do I notify the board or is that just being a press release? If they only see 3 names or 2 names, they'll know if somebody backed out?
Correct.
Okay.
And if somebody does back out prior to I will continue my weekly updates with you. I'll let you know how we're doing in the backgrounding process if somebody were to withdraw from the process for any reason. So I'll continue those communications with you until we're here on the 27th.
I would hope, though, as soon as you hear somebody backed out, that don't wait for a weekly update,
Yes.
but send us all an email.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Commissioner Indeck.
I would just say, that, first of all, thank you very much, Liza, for all the work that you've done. But let's please respect all of us, and I know we all will respect and allow for the press release to make the announcement as to who the candidates are.
Any further?
I'll just say one thing. I'm really good at that because I forget names real easy. So
Hey, you don't have an excuse. Some of us have an excuse for that. Anything else from the board at this time? Okay, I want to thank you very much to get this process. I think it was a good process, and I think we're all going to be very happy with what we're doing and moving forward. So at this point, I will close the Candiota County Board of Commissioners meeting.